4 killed in attack on Kramatorsk restaurant in Russia. A Russian missile hit a market in Kramatorsk, eastern Ukraine, in the Donetsk region, killing at least 4 people, including a child, as rescuers searched for injuries from the explosions. 2 Russian missiles hit a store in the eastern Ukrainian city of Kramatorsk, front-line Donetsk region, killing at least 4 people, including a small child, and wrecking rescuers searching for the wounded. Kramatorsk City Council said 42 more people were injured in the restaurant. A rocket turns a supermarket into a web of competing metals. One of the rockets also hit a village on the outskirts of Kramatorsk, injuring 5 people. After the bombing, I ran here because I rented a restaurant here, everything blew up there, said one witness to the attack. The target of continuous attack is the main target that Moscow must also overcome. Vladimir Zelensky accused Russia of using S-300 missiles in the attack, which came a year after at least 20 people were killed in a similar missile attack on a shopping mall. Emergency services killed at least 8 people and injured 56 when a Russian missile hit a restaurant in Kramatorsk, eastern Ukraine. A second rocket hit the coastal village of Kramatorsk, injuring 5 people, but the main casualties were in a restaurant. At least 3 children were killed. Rescuers are looking for people who may still be under the rubble amongst the wreckage of the destroyed building, emergency workers said on the Telegram messaging app. Just 1 year after at least 20 people were killed in an attack on a market in Kramatorsk. No one was injured in the last attack. In Kramatorsk, a city often hit by Russian attacks, residents stand outside inspecting the damage as first responders enter and exit a destroyed restaurant. The building is reduced to a web of twisted wires. Police and soldiers showed up carrying a man in a military uniform and boots. He was taken to the ambulance, but it is unknown whether he is alive. The 2 men shouted at the rope before running back into the crack. I ran here after the explosion because I rented a restaurant here. Valentina, 64, told Reuters that everything broke down there. There was no glass, no windows or doors left. All I saw was destruction, fear and horror. This is the 21st century. Online published emergency services locator assisting rescue in the field using cranes and other equipment. Donetsk Governor Pavlo Kirilenko told state television that people could be found under the rocks. Their situation is not clear, but he said, "We met at the garbage disposal." In the video footage on the military telegraph channel, it is seen that the man, bleeding on the road, made the first aid. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in an evening video address that the protests show that Russia deserves only one thing for what it has done: failure and for. Kramatorsk is the western main city of the Donetsk province and could be the main target of Russia's western offensive and attempt to seize the entire region. The city has been the target of Russian attacks, including the attack on the city's train station in April 2022, which killed 63 people. Earlier this year, there were at least 2 attacks on buildings and other public places. Russia has denied so-called special military operations, targeting civilian areas since the February 2022 invasion of the neighboring country. Secretary Wagner is released after military attack. Other Russians who opposed the Kremlin were not so lucky. Army commander Yevgeny Prigozhin led a military coup against the Russian army and was released. Only those who criticize the Kremlin don't stand a chance. On Tuesday, Russia's main internal security agency, the FSB, said it had withdrawn a criminal investigation into last week's attack and did not blame Prigozhin or any other participants, even though about a dozen Russian soldiers were involved in the crash. The Kremlin vowed not to sue after arguing with Prigozhin to stop the protests and withdraw from neighboring Belarus. This came despite President Vladimir Putin's promise to punish the rebels. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov declined to comment when asked about the changes by the Associated Press in a conference call on Tuesday. Prigozhin's avoidance of prosecution, at least for now, contradicts the Kremlin's way of dealing with opposition to the government, such as speaking out against the war in Ukraine or challenging Putin's policies. UN report found that Russia tortured and killed civilians in Ukraine. Kyiv also brutally treated detainees. Dozens of people were killed. The international organization interviewed hundreds of victims and witnesses for a report detailing more than 900 cases of the public, including children and adults, who were illegally imprisoned during the crisis in the majority of Russia. Most respondents stated that they were tortured and, in some cases, sexually abused while in the Russian army, said the Ukrainian Human Rights Office. UN report found that Russia tortured and killed civilians in Ukraine. Kyiv also brutally arrested Zelensky, accusing Russia of using S-300 missiles at a market in Kramatorsk, Donetsk. In his speech yesterday evening, the Ukrainian president said, on the first anniversary of the attack on the Kramatorsk shopping center by Russian terrorists, Russian savages fired missiles again in the Kramatorsk region, killing 22 people. Today, Russian terrorists also attacked Kramatorsk. S-300 missiles. 3 people, including a child, died. My condolences to his family and friends. More than 40 people have been injured so far. Help is available to everyone. The garbage is removed. Zelensky, all such horrors prove to us and the world once again that Russia deserves only one thing for what it has done: defeat and court, justice and justice for all Russian murderers to try the guilty. The S-300 is a family of surface-to-air missiles originally developed by the Soviet Union. After a decade of development, it was first used in the late 1970s. Military analysts say Russia will use modified S-300 missiles are used to attack aircraft, drones and ships and incoming missiles.